On this week's episode of Resiweek, we talk about how Dish won CES 2017 with Air TV, Dish on a Stick, and you guessed it, voice control. Then we talked about an article our good friend Heather wrote about how you need to revamp your sales strategy for retail. All this and more, plus the musings of the one and only Rich Fregosa on this week's episode of Resiweek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Resiweek episode 51, always listening. This week's episode of Resiweek is brought to you by Buy-In.
This is Resiweek.
Welcome to Resiweek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by my good friend. You know him as Uncle Richie, the one, the only Rich Fregosa. He is the principal and founder of Fregosa Design. How are you, Rich?
Good. Mellow West Coast greetings. I'm coming in a little under the weather, but still ready. I can put me in, coach. I'm still ready. So I'm a gamer. I'm a podcast gamer.
I continually try to up the energy on my intro for you every single time so that you can then come in with the mellowest of West Coast greetings.
The mellowest of West Coast ones. Don't think that's not Uncle Richie's style. You know that.
Exactly. And that's why I'm just trying to show the wide difference between East Coast, West Coast. Then to round out the show today, coming to us from Flyover Country, Timothy Albright. He's the founder of AVNation.tv, this fun little channel that lets us hang out and chat. How are you, Timmy?
I am well, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. How's your foot?
It's still broken. Thank you.
Awesome. I wanted it recorded, wanted it for posterity.
No, I
appreciate sometimes. You're welcome.
I have a boot.
I'm here to help.
A boot.
A boot? You have a nice big boot?
I have a boot.
Beautiful. All right, gentlemen, let's jump right in. This story comes to us from CE Pro and the one and only Julie Jacobson, talking about Dish and how Dish is probably the big winner out of CES, at least Julie thinks so. And this is because they have brought a bunch of killer new products to the table. Specifically, Air TV, which you're seeing in this fancy little logo that Dish kind of won CES 2017 by offering a couple of things. First of all, they're offering native Alexa integration for TV services. Secondly, they have this fancy-dancy new device called an Air TV player that has integrated OTA streaming. And last but not least, Dish on a Stick, which is some very cool tech. So just to give you a quick little skinny, a quick little overview, Air TV is kind of an addition to or a rebranding of Sling TV. And what it's allowing users to do is, for all those people that want to cut the cord, don't want that $100, $200 cable bill, they can come in, grab one of these, get access to a bunch of traditional channels, a small selection, as well as over-the-air channels with a little add-on TV antenna. Rich, this is not, I don't want to say this is unheard of, but this is kind of unheard of for a large, telco to be offering these types of services. The fact that they are now offering a way for, cord cutters or cord nevers to get access and pay a small fee to get access to, some of their local channels, their local affiliates and stuff like that, as well as having native Netflix and everything else within this device. How forward-thinking is this for them?
I'm going to keep circling back to the same thing I keep. Like I said, I feel like that Parliament guy just pounding my shoe on the desk. This all comes back to mobile. Dish recognizes, and this is, I like this a lot, because Dish recognizes that because there's such a shift to mobile that's going on, and potentially for the a la carte services for streaming and for all of the devices, to your tablet, to your phone, to whatever you like, this is a way for them to maintain their service. that people would still wind up using their home-based service and not completely cut the cord and go to an app-based design. So I see this as a progression that they're saying, look, we know at some point we have to resolve the fact that the traditional models of how people have been consuming TV are going to start going away. Now, it's not going to go away tomorrow. It's not even going to go away next year. But we're already seeing the shifts in how viewership is starting to occur. And as the next generation of consumers starts to grow up, we're going to see more and more of that they want that more mobile feel. So if you are Dish and you can still sell them whatever the service winds up being along with the Sling TV, and all they have to do is additionally have a little stick that if they're over at a friend's house or if they're changing apartments, if they're not necessarily in a stable place or they're going from room to room potentially, they can take this unit that they're still paying for the service and pop it in and have a living room 10-foot screen experience as opposed to an 8-inch screen experience. And I think that's what they're trying to do. Is they're trying to bridge the gap in order to keep their service relevant while still offering the mobile apps and saying, when you want this, you don't need the set-top box, the dedicated remote control, all these other things. Here we have our branded ecosystem solution, and you drop it right in. We're going to see it more and more. Sling's just going to be the first one. Sorry, a little under weather. I mean, think about it this way. TiVo is already getting out of the hardware business. TiVo's going, more and more towards their software model. So this model, and Roku has proven that this model can work with that kind of like the little accessory stick that you plug into your device. I think Dish is just expanding upon that.
Now, Tim, when we look at some of the other stuff they brought out at CES, including obviously voice control, which we can get into in a second, they also brought their Dish on a Stick, which is their kind of Dish Anywhere model, where they're plugging that software codec into an Amazon Fire Stick that allows you to take this anywhere. So you can take this into your hotel room as you're traveling, your cottage, your second home, or even your parents' house if they have subpar telco. When they're offering stuff like this, do you see this as being something that people will take as a one-off, and this might be their only solution that they're going to subscribe to Dish for, because they're living in that 1 or 2 bedroom apartment? They don't need the full-featured cable system. Or do you see this more as strictly just an add-on piece to their existing, say cable services?
Well, it's a response to a number of different things. It's the things that folks that Richie and I, my age and younger generations have been asking for years. Is the fact that the current cable system infrastructure is you pay X amount of dollars, period. And you get 100 channels, 200 channels. You can, if you want HBO and the premium channels, you pay a little bit more. But when you look at exactly what you're consuming on a monthly basis, you're paying for far more than what you're actually consuming. So this is in response to that. This is really similar to DirecTV Now, which their introductory offer was like $35 or $40 a month for up to 100 channels. So, for $35 a month, which is, in some areas in the Midwest here, that's a good $70, $80 cheaper than getting the traditional cable system package. You're able to stream a handful of the channels you want. The addition of the OTA, the addition of the over-the-air, though, is absolutely genius, and it's something that nobody else is doing yet. And I think that is going to be their killer app I hate using that term, but it's the best one I've got. That's going to be the difference maker for this market, right? And let's be honest here. Both Dish and DirecTV are kind of introducing a new market, and that is an app-based cable consumption system, cable consumption devices, or cable consumption infrastructure. The fact that both companies are making them available on the Fire Stick, on the Amazon Fire Stick, is, first of all, a huge advantage for them, but it's also telling about where they understand their clientele and their consumers are. That Fire Stick is not going to be able to be your cable box. Great, awesome, groovy. But guess what else it is? It is your Amazon Prime streaming device. It is your Netflix device. If you have HBO Go, or any of the other premium apps. You can get them on this one little stick that plugs straight into your HDMI connection. Folks that are in their 20s and in their 30s are looking to get away from cable systems and satellite systems. That's what the cable cutters and the cable nevers moniker is about. So the fact that they're serving that clientele and that audience the way they're doing it, and the addition of the over the air, which gets them the local channels, which is something neither the Dish or the DirecTV gives you yet, it is absolutely huge.
Yeah, definitely. Now, the last thing that Dish announced at CES was that they would integrate with Alexa, which again is very similar, just down this thread of, dare I say, giving people what they want. We're seeing Alexa, kind of take over all the voice control market share right now, and the fact that Dish is going to offer this in a directly integrated piece, again, continues to show a shift. Rich, what do you think was behind the desire for Dish to get not away from their own voice control, because they've had a remote that has voice capabilities, but what made them decide, in your opinion, to kind of just jump right over that iteration that they had that came out last year and just go full-fledged into Alexa, forgetting all of the development they probably already put into their own voice control?
Because they will never be able to hire enough software developers to keep up with the amount of developers that Alexa has.
Amen, brother.
That's the reality. It's pretty basic. They looked at it and said, "There's no way that we're going to be able to compete with that." So rather than say we're going to do it not as well, but our way, consumers just aren't going to take that. It's just not going to work out.
That's not a common thread for telcos, for cable companies, to say, oh, someone else has figured this out better, we will actually let them do it. If we did, we all would have had, now I'm blanking on the box. You mentioned it earlier. TiVo, yeah. We would have had TiVo's, interfaces in cable boxes for the last 10, 15 years.
Well, we did for a little bit. I mean, DirecTV partnered with TiVo for about
that's only one company.
I know. DirecTV did, Sony did for a little while, in the early years of it. Dish is proving itself as a company to be much more nimble than the other companies, and they're using their size. I mean, DirecTV is now AT&T. There is no DirecTV anymore. It is DirecTV by AT&T. So it is no longer a self-sufficient company. Comcast is universal. So these are much larger entities that they are competing in. And ironically enough, Dish is turning out to be the little guy. So they have the ability, and from the Silicon Valley tech parlance, to be able to pivot a little faster and push the envelope a little bit more, because basically they can say, what do we got to lose? And they're looking at, how are we going to acquire, again, the cable cutters, the cable nevers. And so that base, that attrition is going to happen no matter what. I think Dish right now is saying, look, this is where our model and our income comes from. DirecTV, because it's a subsidiary of AT&T, is not AT&T's whole income stream. They're complementary now. So they don't have to worry, or they don't have to push as many services right now, because they've got the whole ball of wax. So, again, I view it, and from a business standpoint, the less that they have to deal with in-house gives them the opportunity to leverage it. It'll be interesting to see how they would deal with a multiple television situation with multiple Alexas in multiple rooms. That conversation still hasn't quite been solved yet. I don't think they're worried about that right now. I think they're...
It has a little bit. I mean, again, going back to both of their infrastructures, you can only have so many streams going, right? I think on both Dish, I think Dish is 3 and DirecTV is 2. So they've at least, said, it's not like the old days of sharing your Netflix login and password and you had 100 people on your account. They've at least said, you can only have so many streams coming from our service.
Right.
Right. But my issue more is a matter of we have it happen occasionally here in my house, and that we have an Alexa in the kitchen, and then we have one in the family room. And every once
your Alexa one behind you that just lit up.
right. So all of a sudden, Alexa, pause, and which one? So you start going back into the rules, which is no, I meant here, no,
Listen to me, darn it.
Yeah. As
Exactly.
Obviously, she's listening.
Always.
Always listening. So, again, I hope that this will cause some of the other television providers to up their game. And if nothing else, Dish just sets itself out as being more millennial friendly.
Let me ask you guys this, and I'm going to take over Matt's show for a second.
Yeah, thanks.
How
Thanks
long before we do have one-offs? I mean, we've asked the question before several times. I mean, I know I've been on shows with Richie and Matt both, where we say, you know what? I've got a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. Both of you got kids, a little younger than mine. Where we go, you know what? I watch Nick. I watch Food Network. I watch Disney. That's it. Okay, this is what you watch. You contact Dish. You contact DirecTV, and for $20 a month, you get those 3 stations, those 3 channels.
So they are finally starting to do that here. The CRTC has announced that the telcos have to provide an a la carte offering. Now, it's still reliant on a digital terminal of some form or fashion. It is not streamable in the sense that we're talking about today. They're finally offering that as, okay, I'm a news junkie. I can get CNN, Fox, and BBC, as well as PBS, so my son can watch Bob the Builder, and HGTV, so my wife can watch people build things, usually kind of poorly. Yeah, I went there. Beyond that, it's still something where they're not promoting it. The telcos do not want. They do not want you to know that you can call in and cancel the 40 channels you never watch and pay a la carte X number of dollars a month for that specific channel. But as far as when that will be readily available and marketed as such, I think we're still a couple of years out.
And it's not going to happen here because of our change in administration and change in leadership at the FCC.
Well, and on top of it, you also have to remember that the network signed massive licensing agreements. ESPN is bundled in every basic package for a reason. That was a long-term contract that's negotiated between ABC, the ABC family of channels,
the Disney
family of channels, and each of those providers. It's not a 3-month pay-as-you-go type of thing. So the providers also have to look and say, okay, if we break this apart or we bundle it, ESPN is still going, I don't care. I signed on for 30 million subscribers. Show me my money.
They're gonna get paid until all those contracts run out, and that's why I don't foresee this working in the long term. Is that like anything, like all of us with our clients, we don't sign everybody up on contracts that last 2 years dated on this date. We sign up clients as they come and as their contracts come and expire, and by extension, that's how the television industry works. So it'll be very interesting to see where that goes. Let's move on to a story from Residential Systems. This comes to us from our good friend Heather. Now, a little bit of backstory, if you didn't know, Heather is a second generation owner of a brick and mortar retail and installation shop in Buffalo. So she comes at this a little different than Richard or myself would, because she actually owns a brick and mortar retail store, which is one of the reasons I was quite happy to have Rich on to have a conversation about this. So in the story, she's talking about how she took her 10-year-old daughter shopping to Walden Galleria, which is a really nice mall in Buffalo. And Tim, you'd be shocked. I've been there. I bought stuff, shoes, actually. But long and short, it's the largest store or mall in their region. And being in there, she noticed how many stores were shuttered and how many empty storefronts there were even in their kind of flagship mall for the region. So she goes on through the story to talk about essentially the three things that retailers need to do to stay current, to avoid obsolescence. And, just to hit them real quick, she talked about how we're seeing malls change their identity and become essentially community centers and focused of more than just traditional retail, as well as the research that's out there that humans are, we as people are looking to, get out and see and feel and touch and try stuff on occasionally when shopping. We're not always comfortable buying strictly online. And then the last thing was that there's been a lot more focus on, as she quotes it, the new way to shop, the way in which lighting, color, scent, sound, and taste can become such differentiating factors to keeping people in your store and driving people to your store. So the reason I was excited that Rich was on this is, as long as I've known you, Rich, you have been, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say you've been an adamant opposer to retail environments. You've been, again, I don't want to say against, but you haven't been in the or on the side of retailers and showrooming and integrators wanting showrooms. So in reading an article such as this, what does this do for you as far as the options of, say, someone like myself who has had storefront in the past, currently does not, but maybe looking at going back into that realm?
Well, I mean, the first thing it always comes back to is your market. I think that my issue has always been having a showroom or a storefront location for the sake of it, or for feeling that it legitimizes you as a business. I think from the custom integration standpoint and from the Resi channel, that comes back down to your identity. Are you a stereo store? Are you a TV store? Are you a technology advisor? And that comes back to looking at what you are from a DNA standpoint as a company and the services that you're offering. And I think that a lot of times, I've had showrooms before. We had one that when I was still an integrator, we probably opened it 20 years too early. I think we opened up in the Napa Valley, and the market just wasn't ready for what we were trying to do there. And we crashed and burned. There was lessons to be learned, and the biggest lesson was that we didn't understand the market as well as we probably should have. And we went in more sure of what we thought we were offering as opposed to what people actually wanted up in the area. I think right now with the shift, and really this article is just, it's highlighting that people are shopping a different way, people are interacting a different way. This model that she's talking about isn't new. We have this model, especially on the West Coast. We have an area in here just in the Silicon Valley called Santana Row. It was one of the very first ones that was built that had mixed live workspace, retail space, environment space, professional buildings, everything else, where it became this sort of a higher end community that had everything that you needed within walking distance. And in suburban areas, you're going to see more and more of that. The mall approach, where you went and you shopped and everybody congregated together, that's just not a lifestyle that people are leading anymore. And a big part of it is due to the fact of the convenience and the immediacy of the internet. So from a showroom standpoint and how it relates to this industry, again, how are you making it different? If you're going to be a destination, why are you going to be a destination? If you're going to be a destination, you need to make sure you're in a place where other people are already going to be in the first place. But that costs. And so there becomes the overhead expense of that. So say you do decide to go into one of these combination work, retail, community spaces, your footage costs are going to be pretty high. Mm-hmm. So at that point, you need to be on top of your numbers to make sure that you can support it. Because again, we all, as business owners, we all want to get bigger. We all want to be out there. We all want to showcase and highlight we're the best. But you have to also take a look at, if you took that money for a retail presence, and again, the feeling of being justified as a business and legitimized as a business because of the storefront, how much of that money and your lost opportunity cost that you're paying for rental footage, depending on your traffic, could not be going towards the business. And we shut down our showroom. I want to say it's been 8 years now since we finally shut down our showroom. And we were in the design center. We were in the San Francisco Design Center. We were where all the interior designers were, all the decorator spaces were. What happened is that at the same time, it's where all of the tech companies were buying land. So we were all of a sudden across the street from Twitter and all these other tech companies, and the rent kept going up and up and up and up. And we finally looked at it and said, we're not justifying bringing enough people in to be able to maintain that space. It was a losing proposition. So then that question became, well, do we shut down or do we move? Well, if we move, why would we move? How do we staff it? There's all these other things that come into play. And so right now it's a matter of, from a business standpoint, if you are going to stay there and if you're going to look to shop a different way or offering it, then you need to look very clearly as what's going to make you a difference maker in that market.
So, Tim, listening to what Rich said and reading the article, think about it from someone who currently is either operating in a small retail environment or looking to expand into something. Are we to the point where there's almost no point in opening retail for the sake of opening retail, which I would personally agree with Rich that is 100% the place where we're at. But if someone is wanting to take advantage of customers' desire to see things, touch things, interact with things, and let's be honest, we can, as integrators, we can create some of the coolest experiences for a homeowner or for a small business. But it's quite often very hard to explain that and demonstrate that to the client without them seeing it, just because they can't wrap their head around some of the stuff we do. Are we to the point where we almost have to go the route of, dare I say, an Apple store and create, you're laughing, and create not only an environment where you can showcase cool technology, but you can do it in a place that, go back to Heather's article, that looks great, smells great, sounds great, has that community feel. Because all you have to do is walk by an Apple store in just about any country or any city in the world, and you see people shopping and you see people hanging out. Is that the avenue and the direction that integrators should be going if they want to have a space for their clients to come see?
There's a very smart friend of mine. He has an integration firm in the Midwest here, and as I was starting the full-time part of AVNation, he gave me a piece of advice. He said, don't spend $1 unless you're going to make $3 back. Okay. If you are spending $100, $1,000, $10,000 on rent, let's just start with rent, and you're not able to recoup 2.5 to 3 times that directly as a result from that endeavor, you don't do it. And that's just a basic business a basic business philosophy. Yes, there are wonderful things that we can do, but there are other technological ways that we can get around not being able to see and feel and touch. Rich and I were fortunate enough to go to CEDIA together, and we hung out and ran into John Siaka, who had just come from this virtual reality system that, the virtual reality of this room, of this system, allowed you, it was such detail that you could see the projector beam and the dust in the projector beam in this system. Now, it's going to be pricey, right? But it's a one-time cost versus a monthly fee for your rent, a monthly rent. So there are ways around getting, people not being able to visualize what you're doing. Take them into other people's homes. Make your home a showcase, or a lab. Depends on how you want to look at it. Take your garage and take that and turn that into a space. Obviously, depending on what your spouse allows you to do. But there are ways around that monthly bill for rent that you can get around. Now, if it makes sense for you, if it makes sense for the space, Rich was talking about being in the design center. It's a perfect place for someone who's trying to design technology and get involved with architects. But he and his partner had to make a choice at one point in time. The cost was greater than the benefit, and that's what it comes down to.
At what point do you jump out of that boat then? And this is for either one of you. If somebody has a retail environment currently or a showroom space, at what point is it just a number-based decision, or is it something more attributed to the new way in which people shop?
It's more. I mean, to just, I'd love to be able to say that, we took a unemotional, detached view to shutting down the showroom, and no, I mean, it sucked when we shut it down. I mean, and I legitimately felt like a failure for a while. It was just like I couldn't maintain it. What's wrong with me that we couldn't. But but we looked at, and what we discovered is that when we looked at our numbers, we had 5 actual clients had walked through that during the entire year.
Holy
and
cow.
Those 5 clients generated 7% of the sales for that year.
Yeah, it's rough.
It worked out though. When we were towards the end, I was still commuting. My son was still small, and it worked out. He was my commute buddy and everything else. But there became a point where it was like, making the hour commute into the showroom not generated. And we found out that there were other options available to us. And all of a sudden, hey, we looked, and from my company standpoint, I looked and I went, hey, maybe I ought to look at how this social media is working. Maybe I ought to look at how all of the other options become available. And it changed my model, where as much of my business that I do directly for end users, I do just as much business now for integrators. Now, my model's a lot different than several other companies, but what it forced was a different way of looking at how my company operated, and using the skills as a company, to evolve. And that's it. And then we're all evolving right now in terms of this industry. You can't not see what's around you and go, you've got to evolve and change where you're at. Again, if you're getting out of the retail situation, do you have interior designers do you work with? Do you have shading companies do you work with? Do you have all of these other places where in the past, co-op a space with a designer, co-op a space with a custom furniture fabricator? I've seen that done quite successfully. You don't have to do it on your own. It's a matter of looking and saying, how do you align as a technology advisor to provide the end result?
Very good. All right, gentlemen, that wraps up all the time we have for this episode. And I didn't really care about Tim's opinion on that last question. So
Nobody does.
Well, no, some people do, but we're trying to convert them.
Okay.
Rich, thanks so much for being here, my friend. Not feeling as well as you are. Where can people connect with you?
I'm going to say that, as again, Richie will just keep on going and going and going if you let me, if I don't get muzzled. I'm going to say it's because I'm sick this time. But you can find me at fregosadesign.com, at our Fregosa, until we can get like a lower third. I can't point to it yet. But somewhere there. At Fregosa on the Twitters, or type in my name in the Googles, and things will, I'm sure, show up around my name.
Very good. Tim, thanks for being here, my friend. Where can people find you?
They can find me on the Twitters, like Richie said, TD Tim David Albright, but also in about 2 weeks from right now, they'll find me in the beautiful town of Amsterdam for ISE 2017.
Very good.
Yeah.
For myself, you can find me on Twitter at Matt D. Scott and pretty much every other social media platform. But more importantly, please stop by AVNation.tv. You'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows that cover all the verticals we cover, including Tim's awesome show, AV Week, that he doesn't invite me on anymore. But when you are at the site, see, you're missing all the fun because Tim's cracking up in the other window. But when you are on the site, please make sure you stop by and take a look at our list of underwriters. They support us, and we would appreciate it if you reach out and thank them for their support of us, as well as support them with your business. That is all the time we have for this week's episode of Resiweek.